It's nobody's favorite time of the week again. It's Ask a Rabbi Wednesday. The following question I received in November of 2013 from Dr. Loomis in Walker, Louisiana. He identifies as a Ben Noach, meaning he believes in the Jewish religion as his faith, but as much that he was not born Jewish and did not convert. Maybe since then he did. It's been a few years. He is not part of the Jewish religion, but accepts the Torah faith as a non-Jew, as a non-Jewish believer in the Jewish Torah, which basically the Jewish religion says that you don't have to be Jewish to go to heaven, according to most opinions. Not all opinions, but that's what's generally accepted. Everything in Judaism, you're going to find more than one opinion. I'm saying within Orthodox Judaism. His question is about joining the Hasidic communities. How hard is it to become a Hasidic Jew? Do they accept outsiders into their communities? It seems to be very closed. My response was as follows. I've seen personally both Balei Teshuvah like myself, converts like my wife, and many friends of mine, both Balei Teshuvah and converts, who have joined all kinds of Hasidic communities. Some communities, it's interesting, the ones that might be considered more closed to the outsider actually have a higher percentage of converts than they do of Balei Teshuvah, meaning higher percentage of people who were not originally Jewish joining them than people who were originally Jewish and were not religious. Although there is both, of course, certain communities have more people joining from the outside, such as Chabad and Breslov, are the big ones, and many of the small ones as well. And in general, as long as you are a pious and sincere convert to the religion, and I mean that convert, Baal Tshuva is also, in a sense, in the secular terminology, would be considered a convert as well, not a ger tzedek, but a convert. They underwent a religious conversion. They were born again into Judaism, let's say, so to speak. If you're really sincere, you're going to be accepted. And if you, adopt the whole culture and send your children to the schools and everything, in general, you'll be accepted. In general, though, as far as marriage goes, it's generally suggested, although it's not always the case, that they should marry someone of a similar background. But sometimes that's done in a superficial way, and it's not very beneficial to the people, and it often turns people off. But they should find things in common and not necessarily just go the way that the Hasidic culture goes, if you didn't grow up that way. As far as but find someone like-minded who also wants to live that lifestyle together. It's not a matter of a lot of people think it's a matter of discrimination. It's not really such a matter of discrimination as much as just that the marriages work out better in general when you have similar backgrounds and similar ideas. But more important than the backgrounds is similar goals, of course. My advice in general to people who come from outside the Hasidic community, who are looking to join a Hasidic community, is to find a rebbe or a rabbi with few followers, not necessarily to join one of the larger Hasidic groups, but rather to find a rebbe with very few followers, because in that way, generally, they'll accept you like as part of their family, in a certain sense, almost. You're going to have much more access to the rebbe, and much more opportunities and growth and so forth. And also, I very strongly tell people to be normal. That's, something I've heard from many, the mainstream Hasidic groups, which don't attract so many outsiders. Excuse me. It's very important just to live a normal life, not to be extreme, not to be weird, not to be crazy. Just be normal, but that doesn't mean being like everybody else. In a certain sense, more than anything, be yourself. And if being yourself, part of that is identifying with Hasidism, kol hakavod, that's wonderful. Also, many people also might adopt Hasidic customs without necessarily joining a particular community, and that's also perfectly fine. In general, part of what we're saying being normal, everything is to be consistent. You shouldn't take a little bit. Some people, they do a little bit of this, a little bit of that, even though there's nothing technically wrong with that. As long as you're following Jewish law, it's out of the ordinary. And so I generally strongly suggest to people who want to listen to me, I don't know why anyone would want to listen to me, to try to be consistent, to a certain degree, be, for lack of a better term, in some way or form mainstream, as much as you can, but also recognize that you won't be 100% part of the community, but nobody really is. Nobody's perfect. Nobody, and so, you'll always have one foot outside, one foot inside. I'm adding a lot more to what I said before. I'm reminded of a teaching from the Degel Machne Ephraim, one of the early Hasidic masters. He was grandson of the Baal Shem Tov, and many of what we know about the Baal Shem Tov, even though he was very young when the Baal Shem Tov passed away, and many would suggest that he channeled this supernaturally from his grandfather after his grandfather's passing, many of his teachings. And the Baal Shem HaKadosh, the Degel Machne Ephraim writes the following. He says, it says in Tehillim, in Psalms, in Psalm 119, Geranichi ba'aretz al taster b'meni mitzvosecha. It says, I'm a stranger, or a ger, like a convert, in the land. Do not hide your commandments from me. So what does that mean? So the way I understand that is, the way the Degel Machne Ephraim, the Holy Sodla cover, he explains it like this. God is a stranger in this world. He's not. This is the world. He is the place of the world, but the world is not his place. That's what our sages say. Now, a ger, someone who comes from outside of the Orthodox community and enters the community, and really a Baal Tshuva is really in the same way. Anyone who's kind of an outsider who came in, he has nowhere, because he's no longer part of his former lifestyle. So his old friends don't accept him because he gave up his old lifestyle. And his new community, he also finds he's a little bit foreign. He's, the same. It's the same thing even with a new kid in school, the same thing with an immigrant, the same thing with all these things. You feel a little bit of outsider until you find a landsman. You find another ger, you find someone who you have something in common with. Then you don't have to hide who you are. I know some gerim didn't tell anybody they were gerim except the other gerim. The other gerim they told, but all their other friends, nobody knew they were gerim. Sometimes people were megala sod, which you shouldn't do. Some people told their secret, but not that there's anything to be ashamed of. It's a great source of pride, but the fact of the matter is most people don't follow proper Torah hashkafa and don't fulfill the mitzvah of loving the stranger the way you're supposed to. Unfortunately, the communities have this problem. It's not a Torah problem. It's a problem that they don't follow the Torah. It's not a problem with the Torah. It's not a problem with the religion. It's a problem with people who don't live up to the religion, even if they're in other ways very religious. and the community is getting better in time with this. Now, so the ger can open up to the other ger, and so too King David was saying to God, I'm a ger like you. Don't hide your mitzvos from me. And if we, so it's a very beautiful teaching, and that's, we still have to walk with God as being in the world and not of the world, in a sense, and no matter which world. Even when we get into the religious worlds, the main thing is our walk with God. The main thing is our relationship with God, our devotion to His Word. That's what matters, and we use these communities as a tool in that, but it's not always. A friend of mine, he asks, when it comes to connection to God, is community a help or a hindrance? It's something to think about. And so we have to find our own ways. So, but still, if we find like-minded individuals, you can succeed very well. And you have the tools to live and everything. People can be very successful entering into these communities. They're not as closed as people think. There's a lot of propaganda, because particularly since a lot of the people who run the media, they have an agenda that's, because they themselves, a lot of them have Jewish backgrounds, and they have turned their backs on Judaism. There's a very anti-Torah agenda in general in the media, and that's really colored a lot of people's views of these communities. Similarly, a lot of the ideas that people have in general about Orthodox communities mostly come from lies that the anti-Torah, so-called Enlightenment movement, they call themselves Haskalah, which means, intelligence, enlightened. But the Chanan Wasserman said, you should spell Haskalah not as they do with the letter sin, but with the samech, which means foolishness. It's really a movement of foolishness. There's no Haskel in that, there's no intelligence in that, because it's not really grounded in truth. It's filled with propaganda and lies, and you really have to work hard to find the core of truth. And unfortunately, even so many people from within inside the communities have bought into those lies. So my answer is yes, you can. Anyone from the outside, they can enter these communities if they really want to. The question is, how much do you want to what degree? I added a lot more than I said in 2013, to what I'm saying now, to my original response. And alright, thank you for watching. If you made it this far, I really respect that. Please like, share, and respond. I'd love to hear responses. If you have any questions for future episodes, please put them in the comments below or contact me privately. You can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and I look forward to hearing from you all. And please, if you don't subscribe yet, please do subscribe and share these videos. Alright, God bless you. We'll see you next time.